Watch this.
Idaho's lieutenant governor has been told to cease and desist after her newsletters seem to break an Idaho elections law. The Attorney General's office points out how she did that. Election day is upon us, so we're having a little fun to get ready. We're going with a game show to answer your questions about polls, ballots, and all things politics. Now, tomorrow is not a presidential election, but we are talking candidates for the country's top office. 4 presidents ago, one hopeful stumped here in the Gem State with one cardboard sign and a pair of worn-out shoes. You know, electioneering sounds like a decent description of something someone does, like electioneering, engineering, auctioneering, pioneering, imagineering. It's not as magical as that one, though. Merriam-Webster defines electioneering as to take an active part in an election, to work for the election of a candidate or a party. Well, Idaho law defines it as something that is not supposed to happen within 100 feet of a polling place, but it's also not supposed to happen by any of Idaho's public agencies or any of its employees. And that's apparently what one of Idaho's highest level employees is accused of doing. Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin has been told twice by the state attorney general's office she is violating Idaho's Public Integrity in Elections Act with a couple of newsletters sent out by her office. They notified the lieutenant governor with those 2 letters on consecutive days. The first one, dated November 3rd, referred to a newsletter sent out last month on October 13th. The email titled, "Mutinous Republicans Assemble in Boise as Economic Woes Accelerate," and you can see the official letterhead of the lieutenant governor's office attached to it. It refers to Tom Arkush, the Democratic candidate for attorney general, as, quote, a radical Democrat, saying, openly endorsing a radical Democrat is the most obvious way of confirming that you are, in fact, a Republican in name only, she said. The second instance, which was brought to the AG's attention, happened last week, November 3rd, the day they sent her the first letter. This newsletter brought up the constitutional amendment on tomorrow's ballot, SJR 102. That one, if passed, would allow the legislature to call itself back into session. We'll get to that in just a second on your screen. In this communication, once again with official Lieutenant Governor letterhead, she writes, SJR 102 would put the controls of the legislature back where they rightfully belong. And SJR 102 serves to restore the structure of the government where it should have been all along. So Idaho's Attorney General's office saw those and said, you can't do that. They reminded Lieutenant Governor McGeachin, as a constitutional officer, you have to follow certain rules that were passed very recently, in fact. The Public Integrity in Elections Act, Title 74, Chapter 6, Section 2, which passed in 2018, by the way, says neither a public entity nor any of its employees shall use, nor shall a public official authorize or use public property or resources to advocate for or against a candidate or a ballot measure. Public funds can't be used, it says, and that would include, I would assume, her own salary typing these things up, or using state websites, or maybe paying people. Like, oh, I don't know, the former spokesperson for your failed campaign for governor, who was recently promoted to your office's Director of Strategy and Constituent Services. Maybe paying Michelle Hamilton $37 an hour to write said newsletters. Maybe that would be a violation. Lieutenant Governor acknowledged she got the letters from the AG's office. And just today, Lieutenant Governor McGeachin put this out on her Facebook page, lamenting the fact that letters she received were, quote, leaked to the media. Amazing how these things keep happening, she quipped. She went on to say her newsletters are a way to keep her constituents informed, adding while they may sometimes reference candidates and their campaigns, I'm very careful that the wording does not advocate for or against a candidate or a ballot measure. This is just another false mischaracterization of my actions as Lieutenant Governor, she said. She said she removed the link to her newsletter archive from the Lieutenant Governor website this morning. So she said she's careful with the wording, she says, meaning she took care to use words like radical Democrat to refer to a candidate from a competing party, and phrases like putting the controls back where they belong or where they should have been all along when it comes to an amendment to the Constitution being decided by voters. So the question is, do those words sound like advocating for or against a candidate or a ballot measure? Idaho's Attorney General's office seems to think so, and said should the Lieutenant Governor continue doing these things, sending out correspondence with state resources and under an official capacity, they will have no choice but to impose a civil penalty, which would be a fine of at least $250, including attorney's fees. All right, speaking of playing games, we thought playing a game would be a great way to get some I don't know, some info and answer some of your election questions. It's happening tomorrow, by the way, this election, if you haven't heard. And by this time, we've kind of addressed these things in virtually every way imaginable. So we thought we'd, well, put a spin on it, literally. And Joe, you've combined several of these viewer questions under what do we want to call this thing, by the way? It's a wheel, it spins. Yeah. What are we going to call this?
You asked me this earlier today, Brian. I can only settle on the Wheel of Wow.
The Wheel of Wow, we like it. Okay,
That's
so
it.
what we're going to do is we're going to spin this wheel.
We are.
I'm going to control that here. So kind of, this is my game, and I've got to try to answer these questions. Is that correct?
Right. I'm Bob Barker, so you're the contestant.
Let me hit that button and see what happens. Is it lining up there?
Hit it.
You just give me a little touch screen there, Joe.
You got it.
A little spin. There we
All
go.
right,
Thank you
here
very
we
much.
are. Here it goes. All right, Brian, this category is partisan offices. Don writes in, Brian, why are so many elected offices partisan? Shouldn't it just be for offices that make policy? Coroner, sheriff, controller, treasurer, et cetera, et cetera. Seems to be administrative positions. Look forward to your thoughts. That is from Don. Brian, you have an idea as to why Idaho has partisan and nonpartisan elections?
I don't, other than that it's something that was written in the Constitution. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is specified in Idaho code that municipal elections are actually supposed to be nonpartisan. Now, in more recent years, we've seen some politicization of these municipal races, these city races that are not supposed to be political, but well, that's the way it goes. All right, so Brian's 1 for 1.
All right, spin it again, Joe.
Spin it again.
I can't seem to get control over here. We got it.
All right, I'm your spin master here. Here we go. Help for voting. This is a good category ahead of the election, Brian. Larry writes, are there resources at the polls available to a person with a disability or who is blind? Larry, thanks for your question. Brian, what do you say?
We touched on this last week a little bit, and so I kind of know the answer to this, but I would have to say yes, because, well, you can't just not let somebody vote because they can't either read it or, can't mark their ballot.
That's right. Your polling location should have the ability to help out people that maybe are visually impaired or they can't hear so good. But Pam Eckert, who is the Bingham County clerk, she weighs in on this. She has some advice for you at home.
Well, when they go and check in with the poll worker, they just have to tell them that they'd like to use the accessibility voting machine. And they'll just guide them to that and direct them how to use it, and then they can vote and cast their ballot.
Brian, and if you want to bring someone with you, you can also do that. If you need someone there to help you with it, they got all kinds of things for people that just need a little bit of help voting. So make sure you vote.
5 more. Let's go. Spin that wheel.
Spin the wheel. Here we go. And Brian, this category is, a popular one. It's a liner there. This is actually going to be SJR 102. Brian, we just missed that liner, and Trent writes to us. Does SJR 102, the constitutional amendment on the ballot, eliminate the 100-year-old limit of special sessions no longer than 20 days? Why has no one talked about this? Well, Trent, we will talk about it right now. But Brian, what's your answer?
I know we talked about this in the newsroom today. We didn't realize there was a 20-day limit on these special sessions, but apparently there is, and it is in the Constitution. I don't know. Does it address this? I don't know.
Okay, so this is kind of a really intricate situation here. So the constitutional amendment, again, it is going to give the legislature the ability to call themselves back into session if Idahoans vote yes. Now, that's a part of the Constitution that is not this part right here that you're looking at. You're going to see at the bottom of your screen here, it says, when convened in extra session by the governor, no such session shall continue for a period longer than 20 days. So you may wonder, okay, well, if the lawmakers call themselves back, if that passes, would they be held to that same idea? And Brian, it appears to us the answer would be no, because the SJR 102, it's changing a different part of the Constitution. This part of the Constitution wouldn't be changed. So Trent's right, there has been a lot of conversation about it, but that's the way it appears to us here at KTVB.
All right, let's keep rolling. We got 4 to go. I think I'm doing all right? 2 and 1, maybe?
I think you're doing all right. Let's see here. Campaign funds. Oh, this is a real good question here. This one comes in. It says, what happens if a candidate does not use up all the campaign funds? Where do they go? Well, Brian, where do the campaign funds go? Do you have an answer?
Do they just sit in an account somewhere and in case they run again at some other point? How does that work?
That's part of the answer, but we actually have a guest answer for you. We're going to go to the Secretary of State's office. They'll tell us what happens.
So any funds that are left over in a campaign after a candidate wraps up their campaign can certainly be carried forward for future races. There are limitations depending on the office that that individual may have been running for on how those campaign funds can be utilized in another race or for another office down the road. So there's some contribution limits. It ends up ultimately being able to be contributed to other areas. Or it can simply if the campaign wants to close out the account, they can simply donate it all to a nonprofit or another campaign within the campaign finance limits as are pertinent to that particular office.
Okay,
So there it is.
So they can't just blow it all at Applebee's, is what you're saying?
No, they can't.
They cannot. All right, one more
should.
spin. Let's go.
All right, we got
Spin
a
it.
few more. We got a few more minutes here, so we got to really wrap this up, though, Brian. So quick answers. This category, is it legal? This is a good one. Hashtag the 208. Is it legal for election workers to ask you about what party you're belonging to before they hand you your ballot? That is from Angela and Payette. And Angela, I know what you're getting at here. So during the primary election, there were ballots for Democrats, there was ballots for Republicans, for Libertarians, because it was an inter-party election. So that's why they might have asked you about your party affiliation during the May primary. But here in the general election, it doesn't matter what party you're in. You're getting the same vote. So
I knew that one.
You
I
knew that one.
answer.
Brian,
Okay.
I knew you knew that one. So
where's it going to end up this time?
I don't know. We got two choices here. Fate of the ballots. Oh,
Good
this
question.
is a good
one to end on. This is a good one to end on.
Good one to end on. Our last one. So after an election, what happens to all the ballots? Are they kept for 60, 90 days, or a year? When it comes to the time to get rid of it, how do they dispose of them? Are they shredded? That's from Kayla in Nampa. Thank you very much, Kayla. Brian, you got an answer for this?
Bonfire and Cecil Andrews Park.
That's not in the state code, but we can pull up the state code. Let's take a look here. Yeah, there's that. Oh, he got it wrong. All right, let's pull this up. Now, you'll see here in the state of Idaho code, the following shall be retained for 2 years, and this is all part of the Idaho election laws. Completed absentee ballot request forms, tally books, and voted ballots must be retained for 2 years. And I got to be honest with you, Brian, I could not find an official Idaho code on how they need to be destroyed. So maybe a bonfire is good.
It seems like a reasonable way to do it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good for global warming and atmosphere. I don't know.
So
Either way.
anyways.
Well, that was fun.
That was good. Brian,
You
you
know?
did pretty good.
Hopefully answered all the questions that you guys have. And you know what? Who said there was no spin on this show?
There's no spin on this show.
Yeah, there is actually right now.
Well, there it is.
Of course, 2022 is not a presidential election year, but that hasn't stopped all the speculation of who might be on that ballot in 2024. And 2 years out is in no way too early to declare. We know this because of the young man we met 23 years ago who was planning on putting himself into the race for the country's top job 20 years into the future. His name, Brian Anderson, and his campaign trail led him through Boise, just like the Oregon Trail. And you know, former Idaho Life reporter John Miller followed along.
My name's Brian Anderson, and I'm on a 1,000-day trip across the country right now, where I'm trying to learn as much about the thought process of America as I can, because I plan to run for president in the year 2020. I'm 27 right now, I'll be 48 at that time. Sounds abstract, but there's a lot of exciting momentum behind it.
You're running for president in 20 years.
That's about right, absolutely.
That's a little far away.
Now, there's a lot of things that I need to do. This right here is a sign I had developed. This is the only campaign sign, absolutely.
In 4 pieces.
Wouldn't fit in the car any other way.
The car Brian's driving on his cross-country campaign trail.
So it went sort of like that, and down, up and around and through.
Through the potato fields of eastern Idaho on his way on down to Salt Lake City.
We were on the campus of the University of Utah.
And wherever Brian goes, the press train is beginning to follow.
Okay, here you are. That's near Seattle.
That's just south of Seattle. That's absolutely right.
Okay, what we got here? Post Register. Oh, eastern Idaho. What were you doing there?
There I was working the spud fields for a couple days.
Great.
Greatly enjoyed
What do you
that.
got there? Tri-City Herald, Washington.
There I was. There was a racetrack and they needed some people parked.
Look at that. You're flagging there, weren't you?
I was having a good time, wasn't I?
Whatever you can do, huh?
Well, basically, yeah.
Dropping off letters to every legislator at every state capital.
This is truly a new one.
We'll give you guys a couple of days. I plan to run for president.
After all, 2020 is a long way away.
Yep, you guys will all be old enough to vote.
Does anybody, like maybe your mother, say, geez, Brian, you're nuts?
Sign the card for me.
Mainly, they just ask for autographs. After all,
Hey, you never know, right?
That's right. This is America. Anything can happen.
Brian's hoping it happens to him, pounding the pavements of communities everywhere.
And to me, that's vitally important.
The ultimate grassroots effort for the candidate with the 2020 vision.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
John Miller, Idaho's News Channel 7.
All right, that 2020 vision didn't see Brian continue his campaign, as those of you who voted in 2020 know. He wasn't on the ballot for president, didn't even make it to the primary. So where did he end up? Well, Michigan, where he started and now works as a self-development coach. Fitting, since his presidential plans developed out of what was a road trip, just a road trip, to visit colleges where he might want to get a master's degree in business. That road trip turned into a 3.5-year journey.
I wanted to contribute in the biggest way that I could. And to me, I'm like, how can you do that? And so it was in terms of wanting to be involved in public service at a very high level. I'm like, how could I most positively influence the country in terms of being at high level in public office? Well, the best way to lead the country is to get to know the country.
And to get to know the country, you gotta see the country. All 50 states. Yeah, Brian saw them, leaving behind some shoe leather in each one. Okay, so he worked his way around the U.S., saw the people, but why didn't the people see him on the 2020 presidential ballot?
There were some delays along the way. I was writing a book and just the book took a long time. The story of my travels of all 50 states became pretty immense, quite honestly. It was an incredible story, but basically the story kept on growing and I kept on experiencing delays during my travels, just the way that I was living and subsisting in a way. And so it took a long time to get a book done. And by the time a book, which was going to be the foundation of everything, was written, the world was changing a little bit. The economy was changing a little bit. And my book didn't get picked up by a major publisher. And so that kind of got me off track a little bit.
He did keep track of the 4-piece campaign sign. It sits forever by his fireplace. And he still has the old car that carried him around the country. He drives a new one these days, but it still carries old ideas.
My license plate today says Prez 40. Is there a chance in the future I'd be interested? Yeah, but again, that's easy for anybody to say, but I want to contribute as much as I can. And if things get to that level, then I know the country pretty well, at least from a couple decades ago.
Easy for anyone to say, but it's also safe to say a lot has changed around the country in the last couple of decades. He may need to get that tour going again. Yes, Brian got to all 50 states, not just the lower 48. He hitchhiked to Alaska, saw the Aurora Borealis, then spent a few years in Hawaii, like who wouldn't, writing that book that derailed his plans. Brian said he would find a job when he got to a state to help pay his way around the country. Like in Idaho, he worked a few days on the potato harvest, as he showed. He hit 3 spots here, Pocatello, Coeur d'Alene, and Boise. So can we expect to see Anderson 2040 bumper stickers in a few years? Well, only if he can get that red car running again, is what I'd say.
Winter weather in the forecast for this week. It started out wet and windy, a bit wild through the Treasure Valley this morning. That front has since stalled out across south central and eastern Idaho, bringing mainly snow showers through the Magic Valley, points eastward into Pocatello and Idaho Falls. As you can see, that's where the steadier snow is. But a lot of the rain showers that you're seeing with the green shading around Twin Falls, it is changing over to some snow. And so there is a chance for some minor accumulations through Twin Falls. That's more likely as you get points south and east of Twin Falls, down near the Idaho-Nevada border, where a winter weather advisory is posted through all of those purple shaded areas. Could be some winter driving conditions for the morning commute tomorrow in the Magic Valley. Not so much for the Treasure Valley. It's a mainly dry Tuesday ahead of us, but then we start to see some more winter weather dropping into the region because of this low pressure center right here. It brings us a batch of colder air, the coldest air of the season for the rest of the week ahead, and it also will bring us some snow showers into early Wednesday morning. And this could be some minor accumulations for parts of the Treasure Valley. Not all of us will see it, but maybe a slushy inch or two, a possibility. So again, plan for some winter driving conditions as we wake up on Wednesday morning through the Boise area. As you can see, snow potential up through the mountains, generally speaking, about 3 to 5 inches, could be 6 inches in some areas. The biggest winners will be through the central mountains, and again, still a chance for some minor accumulations, mainly on grassy surfaces and cold car tops for the Treasure Valley. That's on Wednesday. Our highs tomorrow reaching near 50 degrees, but don't get too used to it, as we're expected to be some 15 to even 20 degrees below seasonal averages for our high temperatures in the mid-30s for the Treasure Valley for the rest of the week ahead. It is starting to look a little bit like winter, at least as far as our temperatures are concerned, but it does dry out into next weekend as well.
All right, let's get right to your comments to wrap up this Monday show, like this one from Jack in Boise. Nothing erodes public confidence in government more than government officials. Lieutenant Governor blatantly violating the law without consequences, he says. Then clearly the penalties for violating campaign laws are not adequate to serve as a deterrent, says Teresa. $250 what I mentioned, but it could be either $1,500 or $2,500, depending on the severity determined by the AG, I would assume. The 208. So if the lieutenant governor's letter is falsely mischaracterized, that must mean it is truly characterized, says Janet and Kimberly. Yes, the old double negative got her again, didn't they? All right. Great job, Brian and Joe. Fun, informative, and nonpartisan. Obviously referring to our spinning. What do we call this thing, Joe?
It's the Wheel of Wow.
The Wheel of Wow. And I forgot. We jumped out a little too soon. We've got one left. We forgot to answer. Can we answer that?
Can I spin it?
Let's spin it.
Here we go. I wonder what it's going to land
What
on
could it
here.
be?
The category is
Mail-in ballots.
Brian, can a mail-in ballot be dropped off at a polling location on Election Day? What's your answer?
I'm going to say no, because again, I know this answer already. I'm sorry, I cheated, and we've had a couple of these questions already before. So I'm going to go with no. Final answer.
And he's correct. And I want to apologize to the Canyon County Clerk's office. We ran out of time to run your response, but long story short is, if you show up at the polling location with a mail-in ballot, they can't do anything with it. So bring it to the clerk's office or put it in an official drop box. Otherwise, you can go to the polls, have your absentee ballot spoiled, and you can vote there.
There you go. Hopefully that answers all of your questions. We got through 7 today, but of course, we always see them, and we'll try our best to answer them. Tomorrow's Election Day. Don't forget, one thing you do need to do, vote. We'll see you back here tomorrow.